Chinese authorities blow up a dam, flooding several villages. Their purpose, to protect wealthier areas. What's more, authorities banned all rescue efforts in the name of the pandemic. Wuhan plans to virus test all of its 12 million residents. The city is facing a new round of rigorous pandemic prevention measures. American Airlines is offering some customers 30 minutes of free access to TikTok. But cybersecurity experts warn that Beijing has used the video app to spy on Americans. And a nuclear power plant in China shuts down one of its reactors to fix a leak. It comes more than a month after the problem was first announced to the public. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A dam was exploded open and floods rushed into the villages, pushing residents into a desperate situation. And local officials ordered all rescue teams to leave the flooded areas in the name of the pandemic.
A dam protecting a town in central China has been exploded open. To protect wealthier areas from extreme flooding, the communist regime typically sacrifices poorer areas. They call these areas flood discharge zones. Wangzhong town in Henan province is one of these zones. A dam nearby was exploded open over the weekend to ease the flood pressure on other areas. Wangzhong town and some other towns are now submerged.
When you see this, you may think this is a sea. Actually, this is Xiaohe town, the home of 73,000 people from 62 villages.
What makes the matter worse, the local authorities were ordered to clear out all rescue teams in the name of the CCP virus pandemic. A civilian rescue team is still striving to save more villagers, but it's getting harder due to a lack of supplies.
We're desperate for a helping hand to assist us here in Xun County. The flooded area is in urgent need of disinfection facilities, equipment, and supplies.
A reporter from a Chinese online news outlet was with the team. She sobbed in front of the camera, saying they would run out of drinking water in a few days. It's worth noting that all of them are asking the Chinese people for help, with no mention of the authorities. The submerged county is renowned for its quality croplands, most of which is now submerged as a swamp.
China's famous crops and pork-producing Henan province was left paralyzed by heavy floods weeks ago. Around this time of year, the cornfields in Xun County should have been ready to harvest. Instead, floodwaters that authorities had discharged from upstream destroyed thousands of acres of farmland there. That's including more than 13 acres of cornfields that Wang tended in the county. To protect his identity, we gave him a pseudonym.
We basically rely on growing grain here. All of it is corn. We used to have relatively high yield, and the quality is first rate. Now all our crops are dead. If it's soaked for 2 days, it will not be able to grow.
Before the flood, farmland in the county spanned almost 200,000 acres, all of which has become inundated with floodwater. For farmers like Wang, the damage is devastating.
The average loss to a family is close to $16,000. For something like this, it means you won't have any funds to make money anymore.
Chinese media reported 94% of the county's population is affected by the flood, resulting in direct economic losses exceeding $1.5 billion. And officials said Tuesday the city of Wuhan will test all of its 12 million residents for the CCP virus. The area also confirmed its first domestic cases of the highly transmissible Delta variant, more than 18 months after the virus first emerged there. Maha Abradrawi has more.
China's Wuhan city will test all 12 million residents for the coronavirus. That's after the place where it emerged in late 2019 confirmed its first domestic cases of the highly transmissible Delta variant. Wuhan had reported no local coronavirus cases since May 2020, but on Monday, authorities confirmed 3 new cases of the Delta variant. The vice director of Hubei's Provincial Disease Control Center says these were linked to infections found in Huai'an City in Jiangsu province. The outbreak in Jiangsu is believed to have begun in the provincial capital of Nanjing, with the Delta variant most likely introduced on a flight from Russia, according to officials. Since then, numerous cities in southern China and a few in the north, including Beijing, have reported infections. But it was not immediately clear if all of these cases were of the Delta variant or if they were all linked to Nanjing, as some authorities have not disclosed conclusive results of their virus tracing efforts. The Delta variant poses new risks for the world's second biggest economy as it spreads from the coast to inland cities. Authorities in numerous cities have launched mass testing to identify and isolate carriers.
China's Wuhan city will soon face rigorous pandemic prevention measures. The news comes from the commander of Hubei province's Epidemic Prevention and Control Headquarters. The news follows a recent increase in virus cases in Wuhan. The commander told authorities to strictly enforce pandemic control measures. He described the situation as a war for Wuhan's health. He also told authorities to be as strict as possible in blocking imported cases and directed them to cut off exports of the virus. That means that residents likely won't be allowed to leave Wuhan and outsiders won't be allowed in. An online video captured that rule in action. One man was blocked from entering the district where his elderly parents live. His parents are 91 and 80 years old, and he was attempting to bring them food. Large-scale gatherings and similar activities will also be reduced. Masks must be worn in public places, and temperature checks are required at various public recreation sites. Virus prevention measures have also affected Wuhan's education sector. On Tuesday, Wuhan's Municipal Education Bureau issued an urgent notice suspending all offline school activities starting Tuesday. China is one of the safest countries in the world when it comes to the risk of catching the CCP virus known as COVID-19. This, according to the latest travel recommendations by US CDC. Measured with a 4-level risk scale, China is listed on the lowest level, meaning it poses the least risk of infection for travelers. This map is colored to indicate a low to high risk scale. U.S. authorities go by each country's official data to rank locations based on their numbers of virus cases. Also included vaccination coverage and vaccine performance for each country. But questions are rising about the scale's accuracy. Some cast doubt on the accuracy of some countries' reported virus data and question whether all vaccines, including those made outside the U.S., prove effective. A Chinese nuclear power plant shut down one of its reactors to fix the damage to some of its fuel rods. It comes more than a month after the leakage was first made known to the public.
A nuclear power plant in China recently shut down its reactor, reportedly to fix a leak. The facility is called the China Taishan Nuclear Power Project. The plant revealed Friday that a minor leakage was found during normal operation. China Guangdong Nuclear Power Group owns 70% of the power plant. French power group EDF owns the rest, while an EDF division called Framatome helps operate the plant. Framatome released a warning about the leak, detailing what it calls an imminent radiological threat. It voiced the concerns to the Biden administration on June 8th. The warning accuses China of raising its legal radiation limit to avoid having to shut the plant down. That's according to a CNN report. The French company asked for U.S. permission to provide technical support for the issue, but the White House said the facility is not yet at a crisis level after a week-long assessment. The Taishan nuclear power plant soon released a similar memo, saying regular monitoring data shows the Taishan station and its surrounding environment are normal. At the same time, a major Chinese media outlet accused CNN of spreading rumors about the Chinese nuclear plant.
American Airlines is offering customers flying in some of its aircraft 30 minutes of free access to short video app TikTok. It's including this access as part of its movies and TV shows that make up its in-flight entertainment, and it won't charge customers a Wi-Fi access fee. It comes even as the Biden administration conducts a security review of TikTok and other apps with perceived links to the Chinese Communist Party. Notably, TikTok's parent company ByteDance is based in Beijing. And last year, cybersecurity experts warned TikTok was being used by the Chinese regime to spy on Americans. The Trump administration determined that the app was a security threat and sought to ban it. The Biden administration is putting strict new rules in place for Chinese companies listed in the U.S. or planning to list here. That's according to the U.S. securities regulator SEC on Friday. The Chinese businesses need to make clear to investors that it's possible the Chinese Communist Party could interfere with their business operations at any moment, impacting financial results or contractual obligations. Also, oftentimes investing in a Chinese company isn't like investing in an American company, where an investor literally owns a share of the company. When investors buy stakes in Chinese companies, like the e-commerce giant Alibaba, those investors would actually get a share of a shell company that has a legal claim on Alibaba's profits and assets. Foreigners aren't allowed to be true shareholders in most Chinese companies. The SEC says investors need to be made fully aware of this from now on. There are other new rules, too. The policy change comes after a recent high-profile initial public offering, or IPO, failed. Ride-sharing app Didi. Investors poured $4.4 billion into the company, only to see Chinese regulators come down hard on it afterwards. Didi shares are down over 30% since the company was listed on the U.S. market. At the Tokyo Olympics, 2 Chinese medalists appeared on the podium wearing pins that featured the head of Mao Zedong. Mao is China's former leader. He is responsible for tens of millions of deaths through his political suppression campaign and policies that caused massive famine. The International Olympic Committee on Tuesday asked the Chinese team for a report on the issue. Gold medal cyclists Bao Shanzhu and Zhong Tianxi wore the badges during a medal ceremony on Monday. It's a potential breach of Olympic rules about the display of political paraphernalia.
On the issue with the Chinese athletes, we've contacted the Chinese Olympic Committee, asked them for a report about the situation, and we are looking into the matter. It happened yesterday. So just as we would with similar situations, we are pursuing it.
The IOC last month relaxed their rules to allow gestures, such as taking the knee on the field of play, provided athletes do so without disruption and with respect for fellow competitors. But any such gestures are banned on the podium. Chinese authorities seem to be restricting citizens from leaving China. This year, they've issued extremely few passports compared to 2019, with a reduction of 98%. They're calling it a pandemic prevention measure, but analysts say other reasons could be at play. A former associate professor from Beijing Normal University tells the Epoch Times that the move is actually for economic reasons. He says that China's economy is declining. The Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, is bringing in less and less money. He notes authorities are concerned with Chinese citizens spending money abroad and that Chinese money will flow overseas. The professor says that the CCP also fears citizens won't return to China once they go abroad. After Chinese people go abroad, many learn about the communist regime's history of human rights abuse and widespread censorship. The professor points out that Beijing appears on its way to closing down the country. Chinese authorities are forcibly evicting Tibetan monks as they try to shut down a Buddhist temple. Caught on video, a large-scale clash quickly ensued. NTD's Don Ma has more.
The Chinese Communist Party's efforts to encroach on faith strikes again, this time caught on camera. Chinese authorities recently attempted to close a long-standing Tibetan Buddhist temple by force. The temple is located in China's Gansu province, where a portion of the population there is Tibetan. The monastery is named Hongcheng Temple. Monks there found themselves being forcibly evacuated by police. The officers are also pressuring them to renounce their commitments to monkhood. The video shows dozens of authorities and what looks to be hundreds of monks in a large physical confrontation. Many were arrested. Monks can also be heard crying. Some climbed on top of roofs, declaring that they will defend the temple with their lives. Some held a large banner. It reads, "Forcing monks to return to secular life is against the law." Authorities didn't disclose why they attempted to shut down the temple, but some commentators are speculating. Some say that Chinese officials are interested in the temple's land, or that authorities want to clamp down on Tibetan Buddhism. Some say the temple received nearly $50,000 in donations amid the pandemic. Local authorities took notice and asked the temple to share its income equally with the state. But the temple refused, and the attempted shutdown comes as punishment. Authorities' actions draw more attention to the Chinese regime's human rights abuse record. Some have likened the incident to one during China's infamous Cultural Revolution 45 years ago, when authorities forced monks to return to secular life. The Hongcheng Temple was originally built in the 13th century. During its heyday, housed more than 3,000 monks. Don Ma, NTD News.
Is the Chinese Communist Party's next target online gaming? An article in Chinese state-run media called for more restrictions on the industry, spooking investors. Here's more.
Chinese state-run media recently referred to online gaming as opium, causing shares of its own tech companies to nosedive. Game maker Tencent dropped around 7%, and NetEase dropped around 14%.
It seems like they really are almost cutting off their nose to spite their face with all of the things they have done, not only to clamp down on businesses, but to silence or disappear an awful lot of their most prominent business people. Right, Ron?
Yeah. This comes amid a series of CCP regulatory crackdowns that have erased $400 billion from the value of U.S.-listed Chinese companies. Firms hit include Alibaba, Ant Group, Didi, and so on.
But let me ask you the simple, dumb question, which is, why are they doing this? Why is Xi on this path?
Well, I mean, it's almost a replay of the Maoist experience. It's power and politics over prosperity and profitability. And I think, that is a dangerous concept.
The Chinese state-run media agency, Economic Information Daily, called for more restrictions on the gaming industry to prevent addiction among children. It said that in 2020, more than half of China's children were nearsighted, and that online games negatively affected their education. Don Ma, NTD News.
Australia says it'll provide an over $50 million loan to assist an island country in the South Pacific. The move seeks to combat Beijing's influence in the region. The Australian Infrastructure Financing Facility for the Pacific, or AIFFP, will help the island nation of Fiji with infrastructure upgrades at an international airport. The government-backed organization was established 3 years ago amid concerns that Beijing was building influence in the region through low-cost lending to island nations. Australia's Minister for International Development and the Pacific commended the project, adding that Australia is committed to supporting the South Pacific with high-quality, affordable infrastructure projects. The South Pacific region has been at the center of a tug-of-war between democratic nations and Beijing. The Chinese Communist Party has been using a number of initiatives to gain support from Pacific Island leaders. These initiatives include its Belt and Road Infrastructure Project, vaccine donations, and extending diplomatic influence. Taiwan received a donation of 20,000 AstraZeneca CCP virus vaccine doses from the European country Lithuania over the weekend, amid fears that supplies are drying up on the island. Taiwan's health minister said Taiwan is very grateful for the help. Other European countries have also expressed their willingness to donate vaccines to Taiwan. Slovakia has announced it will donate 10,000 doses, and the Czech Republic will donate 30,000 doses. Taiwan's foreign ministry said in July that the self-governed island and Lithuania will exchange representative offices to mutually enhance economic and trade exchanges. North Korea's economy suffered its biggest economic contraction in 23 years in 2020. The isolated nation has been battered by continued UN sanctions, pandemic lockdown measures, and bad weather. The news comes from South Korea's central bank. Here's more.
North Korea's economy shrunk in 2020, a contraction of 4.5%, the biggest in 23 years. That's according to an estimate released on Friday by South Korea's central bank. It said the isolated country has been battered by ongoing UN sanctions, along with COVID-19 lockdown measures and a spate of bad weather. The Bank of Korea's data estimates are considered the most reliable available because Pyongyang does not disclose any statistics on its economy. North Korea has not officially confirmed any virus cases, but Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un recently said that a failure to implement pandemic measures had caused a, quote, great crisis. Earlier, Kim had hinted at a tense food situation. One South Korean government source told Reuters that the North is facing its worst economic crunch since the 1990s, when a famine killed as many as 3 million people. This time around, the source said, Chinese aid is keeping hunger at bay, along with the release of military and emergency reserves. But one expert told Reuters that a suffering economy could lead to, quote, political repercussions, with citizens becoming ever more involved and invested in the economy.
Besides pandemic damages, a heat wave and drought are also reducing the country's food supplies. To help, North Korea is now releasing emergency military rice reserves. China is North Korea's main ally and benefactor. Experts say China is unlikely to let a massive famine strike down North Korea, both because of worries that refugees could flood its borders and of a more unified Korea turning to China's democratic enemies. And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, be sure to check out our last special report from Friday. For years, cyber attacks have been a huge headache for the U.S. and its allies. Now, for the first time, they are formally calling out one of the biggest sources in charge behind the scenes.
New this morning, the U.S. is joining with allies around the world to call out the Chinese government for a series of cyber intrusions.
This prosecution is unique. This case is about a cyber hacking and economic espionage campaign led by the government of China.
In a special report, we look at just who are these Chinese hackers, how the regime uses the attacks to achieve their strategic goals.
Unsurprisingly, the intrusions targeted industries outlined in the Made in China 2025 plan.
How Beijing is building a massive database full of details about average Americans.
We're talking about people's health histories, their criminal histories.
And what tools the U.S. has to stop it. Be sure to check out our report on Epoch TV. Be sure to check it out on Epoch TV. China in Focus is partnering with the platform. That's where you can watch our exclusive content every Friday night. To subscribe, click epochtv.com/China in Focus. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow.